Hello and welcome back to the good old Southern IA. My name is Ben Van Rokel. I run this Iowan Farmer YouTube channel, and earlier this week I spent the day with Soil Max demonstrating this tile plow here sitting behind me. The demonstration period took place over 2 days, and in that 2 days we pulled in about 2,300 feet of 8-inch tile and over 600 feet of 4-inch pattern tile. And in my recently posted video, a lot of you came up with a lot of good questions. One of them happened to be, why are you pulling tile through your crops? Well, I'll answer that question a little bit later in this video, but mainly it was for demonstration purposes to bring you guys these videos to show what this tile plow here behind me can do. Along in that video, you guys came up with a lot of good questions, and I learned a lot of things during that 2-day period I spent with Soil Max. So in this video, I'm going to be releasing my top 10 things that I learned about pulling pipe down here in southern Iowa. So when Soil Max first contacted me about the opportunity to demonstrate this plow, I had a serious conversation with them about I was nervous about actually being able to pull a tile plow like this through our soil types down here in southern Iowa. We have very little topsoil, and when we get out of that topsoil range, we enter clay. We go to a red clay to a blue clay, and if anybody's pulled in blue clay, it's extremely hard to pull anything through. I mean, you fight to dig your shovel into it, and as soon as you actually get that blue clay onto your shovel, you got to fight the stuff back off of your shovel. It's extremely tough. So I was a skeptic 100% on if this tile plow would actually work down here in our soils. And I was happily surprised at how well it actually did work. So to answer the question of can we pull this tile plow in our soils, yes, we can. And if we can do it, that means most likely you can do it. If there is maybe some obstacles such as bigger rocks and things, there's some upgrades that you can do to this tile plow in terms of the shielding, that you can take care of those issues, along with doing things such as pre-ripping, which we will talk about in a little bit. Now this is a great question, because I've actually done research previously before I was even contacted about this plow about what kind of tractor it would actually take to pull one of these. Now, if you read on the internet, there is no clear answer whatsoever. So I actually talked with them, and they laid out a couple of things that I feel surprised me, I guess, and could steer you guys in the way if you're looking at pulling one of these, a tractor that you're looking for. The first thing that you're going to think is that you probably need a lot of horsepower. Really, it doesn't require an extreme amount of horsepower. Probably a tractor over 250 horsepower could pull one of these plows. What it's really going to come down to is the weight, the traction, and the speed that you can pull the plow. What we were pulling the tile plow with was our John Deere 9400. This is our biggest tractor that we have on the farm. Currently, it does not have an extra ounce of weight on it, so we're thinking it's sitting in there around the 32,000 to the 33,000-ish pounds. Ideally, they'd like to see about a 40,000-pound tractor on the tile plow. That would give you a lot better weight for the plow to be pulling, but we were getting along pulling the pattern tile just fine, weighing in around 32,000 pounds. In my previous video, you saw that I said 800 horsepower to pull the plow. It didn't need the 800 horsepower, it needed the traction. So we just made the conscious decision to link the two tractors together to pull in the 8-inch main, and we were pulling that main pretty deep. Now here's maybe where I just want to interject a little bit into this video. On the first day, we did something called pre-ripping, where we had the boot on the plow, but we weren't pulling any soil down. I talked about it in the last video too, where you can pull to depth, and then as you pull up the hill, you will essentially be able to pull easier up the hill. We were able to pull that 8-inch pipe up the hill with just the 9400 on the first run until it spun out on the grass. I think we could have probably made it the entire way if we didn't spin out on the grass. I don't want to give you guys the idea that you're going to have to double hook every single time. You're not going to have to. I mean, you could in theory use a row crop tractor to pull in pattern tiles, and you probably would have to hook, if you're pulling 8-inch mains, 5 or 6 feet. I think we were just close to about 5 foot deep there at some points. So that was a pretty tough pull, on top of the fact that our ground was like concrete. I mean, hard. So if you have any questions about you possibly being able to pull a plow, I suggest you contact a dealer and then talk with them about the tractors that you have, and maybe they can pair it with a model that they have. This tile plow is their biggest model that they have. They have a smaller 3-point model of that can pull, I think it's like 5.5 feet deep. We'll talk about that here shortly. And then they also have a ZD48 model, which I think that they told me that they pulled with a 126 horsepower tractor that weighed like 12,000 pounds. So there's a plow to fit your model. So let's talk about the next aspect of this. What surprised me when I said, hey, track machine versus a tired machine, they said a tired machine. A skinny, tall, tired machine does an excellent job pulling these tile plows. Now, we don't have any real skinny, tall, tired machines other than that 8630 that you guys see sitting over on my shoulder here. But that's not the tractor we were wanting to pull this plow with. So if you have a 4-wheel drive that has skinny tires on it, you might be in good luck for having a decent pulling tractor. Now the next factor that we've got to consider in here that I learned about is the speed of the tractor. Basically, the slowest I can go in the 9400 is a little over 1 mile an hour. That's a little too fast for those start holes. I mean, it works. The plow actually has a program in it to compensate for those starts so that you don't have any errors at the start. But if you're looking at like an IVT transmission where you can just absolutely creep into those start holes, I think that'd be the ticket. So I know somebody's going to ask me, if I had the chance to buy a tractor, or if I was to go out and buy a tractor, what would I look at? You know, I think looking at maybe like an 8 series tractor with an IVT transmission or a CVT transmission might be kind of the way that I would lean, just because I do like the ability to go slower, and double hooking to pull the bigger pipes in is probably the way that I would do this most of the time. However, Case has a road track quad track that has a CVT transmission in it, and I think one of those might be the catch me out to pull a plow like this. Yes, let's talk about grade control. And what I understand is that there's 3 ways that you can control grade on this style of plow. You can control it on the low end just manually. On the plow there is a tube that will show the grade pitch of the plow, along with a chain that shows the depth that you're pulling the tile in at. That's the low end of the scale. The next step up would be a laser system. You guys saw a laser system being used this spring when I was putting some pattern tile in with Steve, the old way, using the old Spicer 6060, and I think we did about 5,000 feet. And yes, lasers do get you better accuracy. However, they are slower. They can have wind deflection in them. You have to move the laser around. You have to do a lot of math. You have to actually set up your runs, and it's kind of time consuming. The other thing is that when you have a laser, you don't have any slope adjustment. For, say, the tile plow is sitting on an angle going up the edge of a waterway, you don't have any slope adjustment to keep your accurate depth. There's a little bit of an issue with that. Pulling pattern tile on a flat, I mean, I could see a laser still working, but you got to be thinking is that pulling in pattern tile is not the cheapest thing you can do for your farm. Is it one of the best things you can do for your farm? Absolutely, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But making that great of an investment, why would you not want to do it with the greatest accuracy as you can? So during the demonstration, we were running an RTK signal being controlled by IntelliSlope, ran through the Ag Leader In Command 1200. And let me tell you what, that is the Cadillac of installation systems. You have the ability to import drainage system designs. You can survey runs on the fly. You're going to be installing pipe with sub-inch accuracy, and it's significantly quicker. Why would you not want to be doing that? Now that's absolutely a great question. And there's a couple of questions that I'm going to tie in with this question as well. Does having drainage pipe in the ground when it's a dry year hurt your crop or make the soil drier? No, not necessarily. Actually, I will show you guys some video is that when you put drainage tile into the dirt, you're lowering your risk in a wet year and a dry year. But we will answer the dry portion of this question first off. On a dry year, usually there's a wet part of the year before there's a dry year. So when it's wet, your roots don't like to dive down deep. And if we can take all the extra moisture out of the soil profile, imagine the soil being a sponge. So you can only get that sponge so wet, and then everything on top of that sponge that you just keep pouring water into, the water's just going to run away. But if that drainage tile is kind of like squeezing out that sponge periodically. Now, as you squeeze out that sponge, that doesn't make the sponge dry. The sponge is still wet. It's just holding all the water it can without having water run off. Now, there's a point on that. Now, we hear about water runoff and nutrients entering the water stream. That's not a great deal. And that's usually coming from the surface water. So if we can take all the extra water out of the soil profile and filter it through the soil like a natural system would and exit clean water through the drainage system, we're going to be taking a lot of those nutrients that farmers spend a lot of money on to grow good crops right out of the water, out of the extra water in the soil profile, and we'll keep them there in the fields and put clean water back into the drainage system, actually using the land like a filter to take those contaminants out of this water. And so how that benefits you in a dry year, which we are in a dry year right now. I mean, we are extremely dry. Luckily, we did get some rain here recently, but we have been really dry. Throughout that time, since the ground never sat saturated in where we had the pattern tile on our farms, the roots continued to dive deeper and deeper. So as we got drier and drier and less water and water kept flushing through the soil profile, our roots were deep. Now this benefits us in two ways. The deeper our roots grow, the more nutrients and the root soil profile that the corn plants and soybean plants and I guess all crops that you're trying to grow have in their availability of their root zone. The other thing is that there's usually more moisture deeper. So if we can get our roots down deeper, which they will be drawn down because of we're taking the extra water out of the soil profile with drainage tile, we're going to increase our drought tolerance. Now let's flip this question around. What about on wet years? Everybody, yeah, they'll work great on wet years. I'm going to overlay a picture here. This is from 2 years ago. Or no, this was actually last year. So last year, I planted my corn, and this was in my show plot for my seed dealership, and I got 10 inches of rain in 10 days. I mean, talk about an absolute soaking. Previous owner, Wayne, who I bought my farm off of, put some runs of tile up the ditches. When I was flying my drone as I was trying to side dress my corn, you could tell exactly where each and every single one of those tiles was from the air, and you could actually see it from the cab of the tractor. Now the stand on that field was borderline complete replant except for where those tiles were. Where those tiles were, excess moisture was able to escape the soil or get out of the soil so we could get air back into the soil so the roots could grow, that they just didn't sit there where they'd rot and not want to grow. That was the difference last year. Now when it pays big time is those wet years. It was the difference between a stand and no stand, but it will pay in a dry year and it will pay in a wet year. Like I said, I am a huge believer in tile underneath your ground and having a good drainage system, and these prove it. Yes, the tile plow models. SoilMax actually makes 3 different models of this tile plow. The pull type tile plow that's sitting right behind me, the 3-point tile plow, and then a ZD48, which is also another 3-point tile plow. I asked Ryan Zook about these. We're going to send you guys back to those demonstration days to answer this question. The ZD48 plow is the tractor that you can pull with a little over 10,000 pound tractor. Is that supposedly what it said?
Yeah, it's a Cat 2 or a Cat 3 narrow tractor. It's kind of the same as the big plows. The more weight you have, the more you're going to do. It does 3 and 4 inch tile, but the average size tractor I've seen it on, and most of the testing I did, was between 10 and 15,000 pound tractor.
And how deep? So that's 48, so it can go 4 foot deep?
Yep, max depth is 48 inches.
So what are some of the maybe the advantages of a 3-point versus the pull type plow? The pull type plow can pull the pipe deeper than the 3-point plow. It also has the advantage of that you can have a greater selection of tractors that you can hook up this plow to, because most tractors actually have drawbars, but some of these big horses, they actually don't have a 3-point system. So what's probably some of the advantages of a 3-point style plow? Now, without pulling a 3-point style plow, I can't really answer these for sure, but some that come off the top of my mind would be is A, the turnaround time in between surveying and entering the start hole. With this longer plow, it takes a little bit longer to actually turn around and then get it backed into the start hole so you can make your connection, even though I feel like I'm a pretty good backer-upper, if that's technically a word. Someone that might have difficulties backing things up, that might be a little bit of a struggle for them. The other thing that could possibly be an advantage to a 3-point style plow is that you have only the set of tractors going through the field, and then maybe the tile cart, which is going to lead us to the next question. Okay, yes, let's talk about the tile cart here. I didn't actually get the chance to run the tile cart, and I actually have a short clip in here that I'll lay over what really impressed me about this tile cart, and there's actually a few things. My dad was running the tile cart, and I value his opinion about equipment, and I asked him the question, what do you think about that tile cart? And he said it's an absolute top-of-the-line tile cart. It has a wireless remote that you use to control the tilt of the bed. Has 2 sides that you can choose to when you tilt it down to actually load the tile onto the cart. The walking tandems, which is where we'll play this clip. That right there is the advantage of the walking tandems on the cart. Our cart, we would have wanted to tip over doing that. The walking tandems, without a doubt, make that tile cart extremely stable. I mean, in comparison to ours, the big difference is that to get the tile to start unrolling, you have to tilt the bed up, and then the tile starts to spool off of the cart. And then to get it to stop, you got to slam the bed back down, and it uses friction to stop the spinning. On their tile cart, you just spin it off on a flat, and then as you start to tilt it to stop it, it's actually got a hydraulic coupler on it, like a big brake, and it actually pinches and stops the bed from spinning around. That's an extremely nice feature. The only things that I could think of that might make that tile cart better is that if it loaded the tile for you, but yeah, that's not going to happen. But one thing that I would say is that maybe Soil Max could maybe try out to do is put like a cutter crusher or something like that on a tile cart, make that an option, where you don't have to have somebody get out of the tractor if you're running along the side of the cart. If you had a cutter crusher, then the person running the cart could cut the pipe, crush the pipe, and then it just feeds through, and you don't have to have somebody get out, cut the pipe off, and put a cap in when you're doing pattern. Something to suggest. And also they have a 3-point style tile cart. That's definitely something to maybe try out in the future. So yes, training. I was absolutely blessed, and thank you guys again for coming out and training me how to use this plow. But from what I understand, if somebody was interested in purchasing one of these plows, the dealer would come out, set up the system with you, and train you how to use one of these plows. It's really pretty simple to learn how to use these plows, especially if you already have the basic knowledge around drainage systems and how to install pipe in the ground. You'll get in there and you'll just be thinking, why haven't I done this earlier? Now I'm actually going to walk around with you guys as I talk about the design of this plow. When I was doing my research and comparing plows that were out there on the market, I thought this one was the best design. What I liked about the design of this plow is it comes down to the shank. The fact that this shank has the ability to have zero deflection, that's what it stands for with that ZD, is that you will not be crushing the pipe if you do the grade changes. That's a huge, huge part of having a good install job on your design. When they brought the shank forward, you get a lot more fracture and a lot more lift to the ground. I mean, the dirt, when you're pulling this thing, it is just absolutely heaving up and just works its way all the way up and over this plow. That I extremely liked as well. And then on top of that, they use some T1 steel, especially on the shank of this plow. That makes the plow lighter while staying as strong or stronger than the competitors on the market. Then changing the boot. The boot is extremely easy to change. Now these plows have the capability of playing up to 10-inch pipe. 3-inch pipe up to 10-inch pipe is what these plows can install, and there would be 4 boots that you would have to own to install those 4 different, or I don't know how many different size pipe. 3, 4, 6, wait, no, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. That's the size of the pipe that this plow has the ability of installing, and it's really simple to change the boot. There's a bolt up here, there's a bolt down there. You take the boot off, and then you change the side shields here. These kick over. There's 3 pegs down there on the bottom, so these will actually lean out on themselves. That way they don't just drop onto the ground on you. And then in the front of the plow, which we talked about in the previous video, you got to change the shear plate to the size that's appropriate for the right boot. The design of this plow, very well engineered, very well thought out, and it does an excellent job. But we can't forget about the weighted flappers. So the last question here, is there value in this tile plow? Absolutely. So I'm going to use what government cost share is for cost share programs that the government partners with landowners to do land improvement projects. So with the pipe that we put into the ground and assigning a $1 value to a 4-inch pipe, and that includes the cost of the pipe, and the $2.98 for the 8-inch pipe, which also includes the price of the pipe along with the installation, what we pulled into the ground in those 2 days was about a $7,500 job. That being said, there's also other values that we've talked about earlier in the video in terms of the health and stewardship of the land. Then you can also add in the value that you can do the tiling for yourself so you know what's going in the ground. We ran into issues in the past where other contractors have installed tile for us and the jobs haven't been done correctly, and we've found issues with the tile. And we've talked about that it is expensive. So if it's not done right, you're just putting your money down the drain. I guess that kind of is a pun. But there's value in that, along with the fact that you can do littler jobs on time. And when you guys saw me actually pulling through the crop, and you wondered, what are you doing? You're ruining your soybean crop. Now, that being said, that was for demonstration purposes. I probably would not be pulling pipe through that maturity of soybeans. But as if you would do that earlier when the soybeans are littler, I really don't see there being any damage to your soybeans, especially if you get some rain going, the heave mellows back out. I might even say there might be even a yield increase in those type of deals. So, and the other thing you got to think about when you do that, when you're pulling into a crop like that, is that in total, I think that we ran over maybe somewhere around an acre of soybeans at, say, $500. Let's just say $500 is what we got ran over for an acre of soybeans. That's pennies when you can get big mains like that pulled in in good conditions in the summer, and then you're set up for the pattern tiling, which I think we'll be doing this fall, and you guys will be seeing. So, thank you guys very much for tuning in. Thank you guys to the Soil Max team that came down, did the training with us down here, demonstrated to me and you YouTube viewers how to run one of these plows and the advantages of these plows. And we also can't forget ADS for supplying some pipe to put on the demonstration day for you guys. Thank you again. Thank you guys for tuning in down here in Southern IA, and we'll see you the next time. Case, if you want me to demo one of those road track with the CVTs, I mean,